Hello, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing our check-in video for the month of April. We're going to be looking at what I watched, what I read, and what I read is going to be divided further into two categories, which are what I've been reading in terms of comic books and what I've been reading in terms of manga and manga-related things, like light novels, and that's really all there is to it. So let's get started with what I've been watching here. So I've been watching a lot of movies mostly, which has been pretty good. I also started watching a little bit of anime as well with my roommates, and it's been pretty fun. So I watched the John Wick movie, number 4. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I do want to say that it kind of went a little long, and there's scenes that felt like they were supposed to be like emotional in the kind of like, oh no, that sucks kind of way, but because of what they were doing, it kind of felt funny. If you've watched the movie, it's basically the section where like they're falling down the stairs. Doesn't really mean much without context, but if you've seen the movie, you might know what I'm talking about, or you might not. I don't really know. But the John Wick movie is good. It kind of feels like the end of the John Wick series, so I'm guessing that they're going to do a bunch of prequel stuff for the John Wick series at this point. I think there's supposed to be a few different TV shows that focus on different things. I think there's one supposed to be about Winston. There's one that's supposed to have Ana de Armas in it. And there was a post-credit scene in the John Wick movie, so I'm guessing there's going to be some sort of John Wick spin-off. Or I guess it would be like one of those movies where the main character dies, but it was a fake death, so they're going to come back later. But I do feel like this movie was a very good closure, so I don't really want them to do another John Wick movie. I'd rather have it be a spin-off where John Wick is mentioned, right? So, yeah. And I watched Shazam number 2. Fury of the Gods, and I really like this movie. I'm kind of sad that it doesn't seem to be doing that well in the box office. I definitely understand why. The fact that, you know, DC has changed hands and it's working differently means that Shazam really isn't important to watch anymore, and so the general fan base is maybe not necessarily interested, or maybe actually the more locked in fan base doesn't really want to watch it because there's no point, and the general fan base probably wasn't interested in it to begin with because it's not really one of the main DC superheroes. So what I'm guessing happened is that people just didn't bother going, and the only ones that did were really big fans of Shazam, or people that liked the first one and wanted to watch the second one, and that number is probably not very big, right? But I personally really enjoyed it. I thought it was a funny movie. There were some issues with it. Basically, Zachary Levi and the guy that was playing young Billy Batson basically weren't on the same page about what character they were playing, which kind of sucks. All the other people did more or less have the same character. So it kind of sucks that the main character wasn't really consistent across its two versions, its two iterations. But everything else was good. I enjoyed the movie. It had a lot of heart. It had a lot of family moments that I really, really liked. And I actually teared up a few times during that movie because of the family elements. Made me, you know, very cognizant of like my feelings about my family and stuff like that, and I really liked it. So it was really, really good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very nicely done. It kind of sucks that it's not well received. Then I watched Mando season 3, and contrary to most people, I'm actually having a really good time with Mandalorian. I really like Bo-Katan, and I think honestly, most people's complaints about The Mandalorian are complaints for the sake of complaining. Like, most of them don't really feel like they're real complaints. They mostly just feel like nitpicks that people are blowing out of proportion. And I don't really get that because, vastly speaking, I feel like everyone understands that The Mandalorian, this season of The Mandalorian, didn't really start with episode 1 of the season. It started with episode 5 of Book of Boba Fett. Everyone kind of knows that stuff happened in that series, and so if they had watched it already, most of their complaints don't really feel genuine. They feel more like outrage bait, if that makes sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are certainly real issues with The Mandalorian season 3, but it's not necessarily about like the characters or how the story is being told. It's rather more of the inconsistency with the editing. Like, there's certain plot points that would have been better spread out across the season instead of dumped in one episode, like the stuff with Elia Kane and the amnesty program. I think that would have been better across multiple episodes. And the way that the quest dynamic, the quest, formula be given a quest, complete a side mission to help you get a thing for the quest, continue doing that for a few times, and then finish the quest off. That formula was broken because of the Book of Boba Fett, and so the first half of that formula happened at the end of the Book of Boba Fett, and the second half of that formula happened at the beginning of the series, or the beginning of Season 3, and people somehow don't have the ability to connect those things, and it makes them angry for some reason. Also, the fact that Djarin is still the main Mandalorian, and I see a lot of people complaining that he's getting sidelined in his own, series, but I really don't get that, because sure, he might not be the one getting the recognition for all of the things, but he is the reason everything happens, and the reason why everything, occurs, and why some characters are not dead and some other ones are, right? Like, I don't really want to spoil the whole season, so I'm not going to really go in depth, but, like, even if he's not, like, gathering recognition for what he's doing, he is still making the moves necessary to make the plot happen, right? So, honestly, saying that Din Djarin is not the main character seems stupid to me. I think, honestly, people just don't understand the difference between a static character and a dynamic one, and Din is more or less a static character here, while Bo is the dynamic one, and so it seems like it's just media illiteracy, and that kind of sucks, but, it is what it is. Then I finished watching Blue Lock Season 1. I had left it by the wayside because I wanted to read the rest of it, and overall, I had fun with it. I do want to do a review for it because, honestly speaking, I think Blue Lock is fine. Like, the anime is fine. I really like the manga, though. But it kind of sucks that the anime has way more tools at its disposal, and it still doesn't make me feel as excited as the manga. And that seems like a huge misstep. So, it is what it is. But even then, I did still feel some excitement watching the series, and I did enjoy it. And actually, I ended up watching it during class because I was so bored in my class. So I started watching the last few episodes of Blue Lock, and it was really, really good. I enjoyed it, but honestly, when I do the review for it, it's mostly just going to be like, just read the manga, because this is worse than the manga at doing what it's supposed to do. So, take that as you will. I think it's fine. I think it's good. I understand why it became so popular, but the manga's right there. The manga's way better. Just read the manga, right? So, yeah. And then I started watching Hell's Paradise with my roommates. I really enjoyed this one. So far, there hasn't been anything new. I read the first volume, and so far, we're basically two-thirds of the way through that first volume. So I'm excited to see new content. And I don't really care enough about the series to read it, so I'll enjoy watching the anime. Then I watched the Dungeons & Dragons movie, and I really loved it. I thought it was a really fun movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of laughs, and I really enjoyed it. But, again, like Shazam 2, it just seems sad that it's not really getting the recognition it deserves, because, honestly, it's a great fantasy movie that isn't attached directly to any previously kind of established book series, right? So it's not like huge superhero stuff that's all based on comic books. It's not like Harry Potter. It's not like Star Wars or anything like that. It doesn't have any major ties. I mean, yes, it is a Dungeons and Dragons movie based on the Forgotten Realms, but broadly speaking, I don't think that most people really know what that is. At least I didn't really. I kind of knew what Drizzt and the Forgotten Realms series were, but I wasn't really into them. And I think that this movie is a great kind of like standalone fantasy movie, and you don't have to be a fan of anything beforehand. You'll still enjoy the movie because it's well written and it has a good central message. The only real issue with it I had is that the goal of the story gets achieved before the final fight, and so the final fight just feels superfluous. Like, it doesn't need to be there, but it just has to, because it's a blockbuster type movie and it has to have an exciting fight at the end, right? But otherwise, it's really enjoyable. I quite liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. I started watching the Ranking of Kings, Treasure Chest of Courage, or whatever it's called, the second season, or the OVA season. I'm not really sure what it is, but I'm having fun with it. I liked the first episode. It was kind of cute. It didn't really have anything too major in it. It was just kind of like an enjoyable, like, slice of lifey kind of episode, and I quite liked it. I really enjoyed it. So, that's what I've been watching. And let's move on to what I've been reading. So let's start with the comic books here. I read a bunch of comic books that I had previously bought already and had already read before, just so I could do reviews for them. So let's start with those. We have Vanish number 1, number 2, 3, and 4. And these would be basically the first arc of Vanished, and I did a review for it, so if you're interested, feel free to check that out on the channel. But overall, I think it's good. It's interesting. It's mostly action and spectacle over substance, but the art style is great. The way it looks is awesome, so I really have no major complaints. I'm just excited to see where the story actually goes once they start making a good one. Overall, it was enjoyable. It's basically like Harry Potter meets Spawn, at least that's how a commenter put it. And I think that really makes sense. That is basically what it is. So, yeah. Moving on here to Death Dealer. We have, let's see, number 7, 8, 9, and 10 here. And these would be arc 2 of the story. Basically, the story follows an arc system plus some short stories plus another arc. So arc 1 was the first 4 issues. There's 2 short stories, 5 and 6. And then 7 through 10 is arc number 2, which is pretty good. Basically, it's a hell arc. They go into hell, they figure out why things are happening, and then they thwart the plan and move back out to the real world so they can finish fighting what they have to fight. And overall, it was pretty good. I liked it, but Barbaric is kind of doing the same type of plotline right now, and I think Barbaric is doing a little bit better. So I don't know. I think it's a little slightly different flavor between Barbaric and Death Dealer. So I like both of them, but you know, they're kind of happening at the same time. They're both doing this hell system kind of thing, and Barbaric is making it a little bit more enjoyable. So you know, kind of depends on your preference there. But I really like the art style for Death Dealer, so I'm not going to stop collecting it. And it's almost over anyway, so there really is no point in me stopping. There's The Norseman, which I also read this month. I'll show it to you in a bit. And then there's 4 more issues, I think. That would be the final arc of the series. And I'm guessing that's it for Death Dealer for now. And, you know, it might happen later where there's more Frank Frazetta series that bring in the Death Dealer. I'm not really sure. But Death Dealer arc 2 was pretty good, so I liked it. There we go. Then we have all of the stuff that I've been reading this month. So let's start with Sweet Paprika, Black, White, and Pink. I like this one. It was a short story collection, basically set after the Sweet Paprika comic book, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. There was a story that focused on Narciso. There was one that focused on Anisette and Satar. There was one that was Paprika and Dill. And I think there was one other character. Yeah, it was like a secondary character. It was some sort of like a co-worker of Paprika's that kind of was interested in seeing what happened if he kind of changed his ways. And I quite liked it. I thought it was really enjoyable. It's not really going to be for everyone, and this is a mature title, so if you're not over 18, don't read this. It's very raunchy in that sense, but it was pretty enjoyable. I was going to do a review for it, but I realized that I hadn't reviewed Sweet Paprika yet, so reviewing a spin-off to that doesn't really feel correct, so I'm not going to do it until later. We have Death Dealer number 11, which is the one I was talking about. This is a short story. This one introduces the Norseman, and it was pretty good. I'll do a review for it here soon, and I'll upload it to the channel at some point. Then we have Frank Fazetta's Tales of Sci Fantasy, and this one is pretty good, although it was a little bit confusing. I wasn't really clear on what was happening here, and I'll also review this at some point on the channel, probably here soon, although this one only happens once every 3 months, so I don't really have a rush to do it. But basically, it's based on this painting, The Crucifixion of an Alien, and it's kind of like it feels like a coup against this like fascist government, and it's pretty interesting. I quite liked it, but the way that the characters were set up and the way that things happened was a little bit confusing. So I don't think the writing was the best in this case, which kind of sucks, but you know, it is what it is. We have Moon Knight number 22. This is probably the best issue of Moon Knight I've had to read in a while, and Moon Knight wasn't even in it, so it is what it is. I like Tigra. I like her outfit and the way that she interacts, and I thought that it was interesting to see her be kind of like a mother, and also kind of the superhero and balancing that out. This was more or less a filler issue, but it was one that I really enjoyed, and this is going to be the second to last issue I have. The last one will be the Venom one, and I'll probably stop collecting Moon Knight after that because I'm still interested in the series, but at this point I don't really want to collect 30 or 40 or 50 issues of Moon Knight. When I don't really have to, because they kind of vary in quality, even if the art style is really, really good. And finally we have Barbaric number 3 here. This is the third issue of the third arc, called Hell to Pay. And this one was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Mostly it feels like the same thing as Death Dealer, but I'm enjoying this a little bit more. I think it's because Owen and the characters around Owen are a little bit more interesting than Death Dealer and the characters around him. But I think it's mostly because of the way that they interact, not necessarily who they are as characters. Because Kerr and Eros, I don't know how to say his name, like Kerr and the Helmet, their connection is interesting, but it's kind of dark. And Owen and Axe have like a similar connection. It's kind of dark as well, but because they have an irreverent attitude, it's kind of more enjoyable to listen to them talk. Whereas Erasus and Kerr are kind of more direct and blunt, and it's not as enjoyable to read, right? So it kind of depends on your taste there. But for me, Barbaric is a little bit better than Death Killer. So let's move on to the manga now. So it's going to be kind of out of order here. So first of all, let's start with Fire Force Omnibus number 1. I have this delineated here because this ends the first arc and this is the second arc, and I'm going to do reviews for each of them separately. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. However, there's a little bit of a kerfuffle here with my opinion of the series, a little bit, because I just don't like Arthur, honestly. So he's a cool character. He looks awesome, but there was a fight in the second arc that just didn't make any sense to me. And I didn't really understand what the point of it was. And I think he's just not as interesting as Shinra. So I don't really care too much about him. And then compound that with the lackluster fight, and I just didn't enjoy myself reading that part. But everything else is really, really good. There is some unnecessary fan service. But it's also so mild, or I wouldn't say it's mild, but it's just so unimportant that I don't see why people complain about it, because it doesn't change anything about how the story is developing. It doesn't go out of its way to stop you from enjoying the story, to show you titties, right? It just kind of exists as it's happening. It's not that big of a deal. And I've seen people complain about this a lot, right? So I really don't enjoy it necessarily. I don't like the fan service that happens in Fire Force, because it doesn't really do anything positive or negative. It's just kind of there. And I don't really feel like it needs to be, but it also doesn't bother me, if that makes sense. And I think this is slightly different from when I originally talked about the series, where I said it was enjoyable, but there was no reason to complain about it. I feel like it's not really enjoyable currently, but it's also not degrading, or it doesn't do anything to remove the coolness of the series. So I really don't see why people complain, but I know people are going to complain anyways, I guess. So it is what it is. Moving on to Soul Leveling number 6. This is a really slow-going comic book. I had not realized that it was this slow, because this is only getting to the Jeju Island arc, and that's halfway through volume 3. So I don't know how they're going to deal with this, because I think there's only 13 volumes of this total, and they're already halfway through the series. How are they going to manage to cover the rest of it, right? And I'm guessing a lot of it is mostly repetitive action scenes, so they kind of just can gloss over that. So I guess that's what's going to happen, but I don't know. I'm kind of curious. But overall, the art style is still good. The pacing is a little bit off, but I don't know. Well, okay. The pacing in the comic book isn't off, but the pacing of stuff it's covering feels a bit weird. So it is what it is, I guess. We have Dino Sanctuary number 2. I really enjoyed this volume a lot. And it kind of dealt with the dangers of being friendly with these dinosaurs and why you have to be kind of detached in a certain way, but also attached in another certain way. So it's kind of very interesting. I really liked it. And overall, I just really enjoy the art style here and the stuff that it deals with because it's enjoyable. We have The Beginning After the End, number 2. And this solidified that I'm interested in this series. But again, the price per, how this book feels in my hand is just not great. It's 200 pages, which is an average manga volume, but it costs twice as much as most of them. So, I don't know. It is in color, but I really don't feel like the color does that much to make the series better. And the art style is a bit weak, but the storytelling was pretty good. So, I don't know. I feel conflicted about it still. So, I'm going to wait another 3 months to see if the next volume comes out, and then I'll decide. But I did really like the story in that volume. So, I'm confused, more or less. Solo Leveling number 7. Really, really good stuff here. Finally, some very important, very impactful stuff. And basically setting up for the final war of this series, which is interesting because there's still 6 more volumes of this, if I remember correctly. So, I'm guessing this fight is going to happen for a long time. And I'm very excited about that. So, yeah, Solo Leveling. The best way to enjoy it is definitely the novel. So, there you go. And then I read a bunch of Mashle. And I also watched the show, and I didn't mention it in my watch list, but it was kind of forgettable. I don't feel like continuing it, so, it is what it is. But the manga is pretty good. So we have Mashle number 1 and number 2. And we have the mark here for the last bit of the story, which is arc 3. And then number 3, number 4, and then number 5 here, which also has a bookmark there to denote where the start of the 4th arc starts. And the end of the 3rd arc was really, really good. I haven't reviewed it yet, but I will do it here soon, and I had a good time with it. So that's it for that. That's all I've read this month. So yeah, I've been kind of in a little bit of a slump, which is why I haven't really watched as much stuff as usual. I also haven't really enjoyed reading as much as usual this month. So I'm kind of going slow, but I'm also trying to go kind of steady, even if I'm not really super excited to read. And I think that usually that kind of gets me out of a slump. So hopefully it works this time as well. And that's all I have to say. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later.